Yo, what's up everybody, it's Tuna. So yesterday the Path of Exile account on Twitter has tweeted that the fix for Vixen's entrapment interaction with Spell Cascade will be fixed in the next restartless patch. Alright, so the patch is like finally live and Impending Doom is fixed, but it's interesting here if we read exactly what they're wording and what they said about it. They wrote, a change made in 3.22 inadvertently fixed incorrect behavior with the spacing of Spell Cascade with skills with additional radius modifier, most notably curses, which gain large amounts of additional radius as the gem levels up. We have reinstated the old behavior only for curses for the remainder of Ancestor League, but this incorrect behavior will be fixed in the 3.23 patch. So next league, Impending Doom is gone, right? This is the last patch Impending Doom is allowed to exist, if this is what they mean. So happy that it's fixed, but also it might be the end of Impending Doom. It seemed just kind of strange to me because of the fact that Spell Cascade has worked like this since 3.1. So the fact that they call it a bug or an unintended behavior, they're mostly calling it a bug, but it doesn't seem like, it just seems like that was just a mechanic of the skill and how it's always worked. I never actually even thought that it was a bug personally, but they framed it as a bug, and so yeah. Basically, Spell Cascade, Impending Doom, Reap, and Stormcall, they're no longer going to work with Spell Cascade next league. So if you wanted to enjoy this build, it's the last league that you can do that. Unlucky. Rejoice, it's coming, boys. And finally we can actually play this build and we're going to be dealing basically 200% more damage than what we're dealing now. So that's very cool. I mean, this video is basically serving as an update for the build. And I just wanted to show you guys some of the things that I've learned and some of the things that you can do for this build, this league. Including some of the tattoos and whatnot, maybe some interactions that you might want to look at, or ways to make your life easier in terms of itemization and whatnot. The first thing I want to look at and point out is the fact that you can actually go here on this page that I will link in the description. It's going to show you all of the tattoos that are available. What this list provides is like the name of the tattoo. So this is what you're going to be searching on Path of Exile trade website, and then what that does. All right, and you need to keep in mind that some of these have conditional sort of requirements. But most of them are just like, you know, replaces a small dexterity passive, strength passive, etc, etc. Another thing to keep in mind is that, of course, we are gonna have, you know, stat requirements. So if you start actually tattooing all your character up, you need to be mindful that, you know, you still need to satisfy your stat requirements. So you don't want to fall into a scenario where you're just basically like, bricking your character that way. But, you know, it's not you don't really have to worry because most of these are quite cheap. And also, you can just basically scour them off of your passive tree with scour orbs. There are tattoos which are actually kind of insane for the build. However, it's really, really difficult to fit them into the build. For example, there's one tattoo that gives cooldown recovery rate right here. So you have to put that on a intelligence passive skill. And what it's going to do is it's going to give you 8% increased cooldown recovery rate. So the way that this mechanic works is that you have to have 7 adjacent passive skills allocated. So to demonstrate that, for example, if I was to use like a dexterity passive, there's a good spot that you can put it here, right? So here, what you would have to do is you would have to allocate this passive. So that's 1 adjacent, that's 2 adjacent, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, right? So if you put the tattoo here and you have all of those passive skills allocated, then, you know, it's going to be active. And so this is a great spot for rangers to put their tattoo, because that means that, you know, they usually already have all of these allocated and they're pathing through here. So they're basically getting an additional projectile for free. However, for the Impending Doom build, it is not quite so easy, since the tattoos that we want to use for the build are going to need to be placed on intelligence passives, and they're going to need to have 7 adjacent passive skills allocated. If you look here at the passive tree, there isn't really anywhere we can actually fit it, right? And I've tried to look at all these different places where I would consider, you know, to be viable for the build to fit them. But unfortunately, I couldn't really find something suitable. But if you do have any technology or anything, you know, in mind of like where to place these things, do let me know, because I do think it's like quite worth it to have some of these. But just to go over some of the tattoos that you can actually use for the build that are going to be advantageous for you and, you know, help you build your character in a much easier fashion are, for example, here, the tattoo of Tuna. I'm sorry, like I'm probably going to pronounce these terribly, but this one, what it does is it gives you 6% increased flash duration. And as you know, in the endgame variant of the build, we're going to be relying on flask duration to keep up our flasks 100% of the time, and so that we can actually fully rely on them for, you know, elemental resistance as well as elemental damage reduction and physical damage taken as mitigation. You can basically place these tattoos, and it's going to alleviate some of the need to have, you know, like a flask modifier on your belt to be able to sustain them 100% of the time. So if you basically just put like, you know, 4 or 5 of these on your passive tree, you're going to have 100% flask uptime, and you can basically put those literally anywhere on the tree. So any small dexterity node, you can take those off, and you're not really going to be missing them since we already have like, you know, 235 dexterity, and we don't need nearly that much to actually use all of our items. The next one that we can take a look at is Honor Tattoo of the Oak. So this one gives you 2% increased maximum life per attribute, right? And you can put this on any attribute, so you have the freedom of basically, you know, putting this anywhere on the tree. And you can imagine that like if you fill up your passive tree with a bunch of these, you can get to some pretty high life values, which is one of those things that these builds tend to lack. However, they have insane mitigation, but they don't have like a huge life pool. So getting a few of these is going to like basically multiply your effective max hit pool, because, you know, you're essentially taking all of those mitigations and then you're getting a bigger life pool. So essentially it's going to be quite advantageous to have some of these as well. The next would be the suppression ones. So the suppression ones are really, really nice because in some cases you might be missing like a few percent here and there. And so getting the suppression tattoos will help you, you know, maybe alleviate some of the stress that you have on your gear. And you can see that these are also very, very cheap. They're about 5 chaos. I think the trade website just died, but yeah, about 5 chaos, and you have to buy them one by one, unfortunately. But essentially what you could do is you could get like, you know, maybe 5 to 6 to 7 of those, and you wouldn't have to get a suppression roll anymore on your boots or on your helmet, for example, right? So that alone is just massive, right? It's gonna make one of these items much cheaper. It's gonna make it easier for you to actually get spell suppression cap early on. Some other tattoos to take a look at could be, you know, if you do need global attributes, then there are also attribute ones. It's going to show me all of them. So 4 to all attributes. That means that if you need some strength, you know, you could turn a 10 dex node into a 4 dex, 4 int, and 4 strength node. That's really nice. And some other ones are, for example, 3% all res or 4% chaos res. Mana reservation efficiency, which in the mid and early variant of the tree, we're actually having some reservation issues. So we grab, for example, if I swap here to the mid game tree, you can see that we're grabbing this reservation efficiency cluster, and you know, if you grab a bunch of these, you can probably drop this. However, keep in mind that in the late game variant of the tree, we're completely dropping this since we do not need that reservation anymore. So yeah, I mean, basically, I would really say that looking at this list and finding tattoos that might suit your build would be really nice. And the next thing I wanted to point out was also that you can craft an endgame claw for this build, and I wanted to show you a little bit how you can craft this claw, right? So this is what it would look like. You don't have to get it on a specific base. This can be on any claw base. It doesn't really matter. However, ideally you'd like to get it on one that has like a decent attack speed, so that if you want to change maybe your shield charge for whirling blades, you can do that. But yeah, so you'll be grabbing any claw with the fracture modifier, increase damage with poisons 50%, which is a suffix, right? So you want to get this fractured as high as possible. And then what you'll do from there is you want to get some cast speed, some damage over time multiplier, and veiled prefix of increased damage, right? And then the final thing you can craft is percent increased damage over time. And an item like this is going to be a substantial damage increase over, Apep's Rage. And it's something that I only really recommend you do in the very, very end game of the build. However, I just wanted to point out that it is an option, and I want to go over a little bit sort of how you craft it right now so you guys have an idea. So the first thing you'll do, as I said earlier, is you'll want to grab the percent damage over time and poison chance, and you want to get that fractured, right? So you'll be looking on trade for a fractured version of this, and you want to get as high a roll as possible. The next thing you do, of course, is you want to regal it, and then you're going to be using essences for this. So the essence we want to use is going to be the Essence of Misery, and that is because this is the only way to get an additional caster mod on what is otherwise an attack weapon, right? And this is percent increased cast speed, and it rolls up to, as you can see here, it's 32%. So the goal here is going to be to slam this essence until you hit percent damage over time multiplier as a suffix. Now this is quite rare. It is not really easy to actually get this modifier. However, if you spam enough essences, eventually you'll see it. So the odds of hitting T1 damage over time multiplier at the current state is 358 attempts with the Misery Essence. So as I previously said, it is quite an expensive craft, right? So this is something that you should only do in very end game if you have too much currency, or enough currency, right? But it is going to be a substantial damage increase over, you know, Apex Rage. So it's something to look forward to. Essentially, you'll want to look for T1 damage over time multiplier. However, if you want to settle for something less, let's say like T2, it's going to cut the cost by half, right? So keep that in mind as well. So essentially, once you have T1 damage over time multiplier, which we can actually set here in the Craft of Excel, the next step would be to get your prefixes. And this is where things can get even more expensive, or you can also have sort of like a shortcut to make it less expensive, however, not as good, right? So what you can do from here is you can craft prefixes cannot be changed. That is because you want to make sure that you can have a clean suffix base. What we'll look for here, prefixes cannot be changed. Sorry, suffixes cannot be changed is what you're looking for. All right, suffixes cannot be changed, and we scour that down to just our suffixes. So here we should have T1 cast speed, damage with poisons, and damage over time multiplier. Next, the process would be just craft a prefix, which is in our case going to be % chaos damage. So if we look here for crafted modifiers on prefix, what you can do is you can just craft % chaos damage and be done with it. And this claw is already going to be substantially better than Apex Rage. However, if you want to take it a step further, what you can do is craft prefixes cannot be changed. Suffixes cannot be changed. I keep saying the wrong modifier. And then you want to use a Veiled Chaos Orb. Keep in mind that a Veiled Chaos Orb has the potential to fill your prefixes. It is a very low chance of doing so, but it is a chance. So if you want to be safe, you should do suffixes cannot be changed and Ashling. You can also do a Veiled Chaos Orb, right? But keep in mind there is a risk of doing that. And the next thing you're going to do is you will look here at PoEDB, and you will want to look for what is the Veiled modifier with the highest weight, right? And that is the one that we want to block. So you can see here that it's % physical damage, right? So we do not want to get % physical damage as a Veil. Essentially what we will do is we will craft physical damage as our prefix, and then we want to unveil. And what we're hoping to unveil is the chaos damage modifier, right? And you can see here that we didn't get it right, and it's going to be quite a rare modifier. However, if you unveil it enough times, eventually you will find it. Once you have this modifier there, then you can just finish your craft with increased damage over time, right? And that is 30%. So you will have a ton of damage. You'll basically have 100% increased damage as a prefix, plus 50, and then damage over time multiplier as your suffix, as well as cast speed. So this claw is very endgame, but it is going to be an insane damage increase over Apex Rage. And I just wanted to have that as an option for you guys to, you know, maybe reference this video as how to craft this if you are maybe coming later on down the line in the league when you have a ton of currency and you wanted to have like an endgame weapon for the build. That basically just sums up an update for this build. And yeah, I'm very happy that, you know, they're finally fixing it, because people are going to be able to experience the build at its full potential. And yeah, I hope you guys have had a good league start, and I appreciate every single one of you. You know, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and have a nice day, everybody. Peace out.